thank you all for coming, and thank you, Nicole, for kind of setting this up, spearheading this whole thing. So I'm Claire, and I am the prison puppy advisor. I always have to think about that for the America VetDogs program here that is based out of the Maine State Prison in Warren. And right now we have very few dogs there. We have 4 dogs placed there now that are raised by the inmates and go home on with these wonderful people on weekends. So this is Archer and Sasha, and Archer is 5 months old. Tomorrow. Happy birthday. And then we have Christopher and Ashby and Harry and Sharon, and you know his name. And they are brothers, and they are 8 months old. And we also have right now a 3-month-old golden retriever in the prison that is going to go home this weekend with Nicole. He's so cute. So these dogs are bred for the program. America VetDogs is based out of Smithtown, New York. And we have dogs placed in 14 prisons up and down the East Coast from Florida to Maine. We are always looking for weekend puppy raisers. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But the program has been going for 20 years now, and we've placed over 1,000 dogs so far. And the dogs, as the name implies, go to veterans. Some have physical disabilities, a lot have PTSD and that type of disabilities, or that the dogs can assist them with. So what happens here is the dogs come to the prison when they're about 8 weeks old, and they are assigned to a primary handler, inmate handler in the prison, and a secondary. And the dogs then stay with the inmates and then come out on the weekends until they're about 14 to 16 months old. And we have a curriculum that we want them to follow. It's pretty structured. And like from 2 to 4 months, we want them to learn this. From 4 to 6, and grow on their commands. And so by the time they leave, they go down to New York to our foundation there, and they go in for what we call formal training, and that is professional training. They're there for 3 to 6 months usually, and the dogs are matched based on their personality, their abilities, their temperament, with veterans that have applied for a service dog. And the wait time now is less than 12 months, which is incredible. And there's no cost to the veteran. It's all volunteer-based and donations. We have some very generous sponsors. So there's absolutely no expense to the veterans. They come to the foundation for 2 weeks, and they get matched with their dogs. There's a lot that goes into that. It's pretty incredible to see how they have the veterans send videos in, and they do questionnaires, and from their friends, family, and whatnot, to find out a little bit more about them and to determine what dog is going to be the right dog for them. So then they come in for 2 weeks and head out into the big world with their new partner. And it is truly amazing to see what these dogs do for these veterans. A lot of them, we are trained for PTSD. And for that, we have different commands. They do a rest where they put their head on your lap or your leg. That is the best one. Some of them maybe teach them to hug eventually, but it's not really an official, but they learn that. So that's kind of in a nutshell what the program is. The other area that some of the dogs go into is what we call facility dogs, and those would be like going to Walter Reed or different facilities. There's one that's at the Pentagon now that is just there to help help with the individuals working there. They could be in hospitals. You've probably seen them, different places. And we have one dog now that is just getting ready to go out into a children's hospital. So they're pretty amazing dogs, very biased, but let's see. So I want to tell you a little bit about the weekend puppy raiser role and chime in for any things that you suggest. So the commitment is like 14 to 16 months, and we when the puppy comes to the prison, they're usually in for the first week just to bond with the inmate, and then so they'll go home with somebody on the weekend of their second week here in Warren. And we somebody snoring over there? He has some thoughts about that. So then they start going home with a weekend puppy raiser, and the commitment is these weekend puppy raisers usually pick them up at the prison in the lobby Friday afternoons and bring them back Sunday afternoon. And they get kind of follow the same curriculum. It's the job of the inmate to do the training of the dogs, but they're reinforced on the weekend. So there's nothing that you need to teach the dogs, but it's still pretty challenging, as you can see from this little rascal here, Archer. He's doing great. No, he is, but I'm just saying it's work. It is work. And then we have a class with the weekend puppy raisers twice a month, and we just meet somewhere in the community. Maybe you've seen us in Home Depot or Lowe's or Tractor Supply, the donut shop, wandering around.
Down Main Street.
Yep.
And if you aren't ready to sign up for picking a dog up every weekend, I substitute. So that way, if someone who is a regular weekend puppy raiser, if they have to travel, they have an event, they're sick, something goes on, there's also room to be a substitute and to fill in.
Yep.
And she supplies you with the crate.
Yes, we do. We bring it.
You are supplied with some things.
Yeah. We do ask for weekend puppy raisers to supply the food. We take care of all the medical issues, costs. If there is a medical event that happens on the weekend, which I've had one, they just reach out to myself or another America VetDogs staff person, and the vets here are very familiar with us. So they just go off to the vet, get taken care of, and gets billed to the organization. So any questions or any?
Can I add something?
Yeah.
When we pick up the dog at the prison, there's a sheet of paper that the inmate fills in, like where they are with the training, what commands get, what kind of reward. Is there a treat? Is there just petting? Later on, it's just petting and kind of reduce the treats. And that is very helpful for us, so we know where they're at. And then we fill out, the rest of the sheet with all, pre-printed questions. What field trips did we take with the dog? How did they do? What was our concern? What did they do really well? Things like that. So that's how we communicate with the inmate. That's the only communication we can have, but it works really well.
Okay. Thank you. Important piece of that, yeah. Because it is a team effort, and we are hoping to have all of the weekend puppy raisers come in and meet with the inmate handlers at some point. I think that's happened before.
Yeah, in the past, the very first round we had up at the prison. Oh, sorry, I can use my teacher voice too.
You're a teacher.
I don't need this. Yeah, in the past, in our very first round, I think up at this prison, there was an event. I think they were trying to publicize. So all the puppy raisers went into the prison, met the current inmate handlers, and I think I went in by accident once. I went to pick up
At
and
least you got out,
the
right?
warden
Yeah.
was there and was like, do you just want to come in and meet everyone? So I ended up going in and meeting, it was very cool. But normally we don't have any contact other than our little sheets. And you still do really it feels like a really nice working relationship, even though you don't know anything about the handler other than their first name and they don't know anything about you other than yours. But you can just sort of you're on the same team. You're leaving little notes did really well on walking this weekend, but got very distracted by the sound of a ukulele. And then that's a true story. And then, the next week when the note would come out from the puppy raiser, it would be played YouTube sounds of ukulele seem to be okay.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
really does. It's fun
Yep.
to kind of problem solve together. Ukulele,
Because you had a windshield washer incident, right?
me.
Wasn't it? No, was Harry the one that?
No.
Oh, one of the dogs reacted to windshield wipers. Yes, Archer. And so they're like, we got to find a YouTube windshield washer soundtrack,
I just took him to the car wash.
Oh,
He also
This was-
Yep.
likes the car wash.
Oh, very
so
exciting.
we try to, on the weekends, have the dogs go out and do different experiences that they're not going to do. Field trips, right. And we give a timeline of from level 1 field trips, level 2, level 3, level 4, just based on what the puppy should be able to handle. So like the 3-month-old now that's going off with Nicole this weekend will be on level 1, which is just kind of low key, just meeting people, walking, going probably down to the docks or whatever it is, but not taking them into Home Depot to the big Christmas display where everybody's singing at you and whatnot. And so we just have different stages of what we would like them to do and where we consider them safe. And like they said, the communication back and forth is really good. And it is kind of an interesting bond. So I come up here once a week and meet the guys and do training with them once a week. And we meet for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. And they are very dedicated. They do an amazing job raising these dogs. There's also dogs in the program that are raised by just individuals in the community that have the dog full time. And when the dogs go in for training and for formal training, the professional trainers there are just loving getting the dogs that come from prisons because these guys, this is a job for them. And they will spend 4 hours a day training them. That's their job. In the prison here, they're paid for it. A lot of the inmates here are working somewhere, so they are compensated for it through, I don't know whether it's Department of Labor or the prison system. I'm not certain, but because I'm not involved in that. But and we do screen them, the inmates. They have to they have to behave. They can't have any disciplinary actions. We are doing drug screening and that type of thing. Originally the program it was all veterans that were raising the dogs. We do have a couple guys that are not veterans, but they're good dog. They're really good. So they all live in the same pod. And I think there's 40 cells in this pod, and probably 10 to 12 guys right now are in the program. So it's very popular. All the guys, for the most part, the other inmates that are not directly involved with the dogs love having them there. We don't allow inmates that are not in the program to handle the dogs. And their handlers are with them all the time, or they're secondary or another guy in the program. So these dogs get a lot of attention. So they're probably happy to get out on the weekends and chill.
And there's more inmates in the pod who would qualify and would be really, really good handlers, but we can't get any more dogs unless we have
Right, right.
Because they won't bring a dog up if they know there's no place to put them. And there's enough guys who
Yeah.
are qualified and ready to do this, but it's really about finding enough weekend people, 'cause otherwise they can't come up. So that's the thing
So.
I think about when I'm feeling a little bit stressed out about something else added to my plate. That is honestly, he's my third full-time dog, but I've had 6 or 7 at this point in and out over the years. I subbed for a little while in between. I did some where I would take them for the first few months until they could find a full-time, or I would trade with someone for a bit, because I have a very chaotic household. I've got 4 cats and a dog of my own and kids and all my kids' friends. And so it's a nice spot to really test out how a dog is going to do. And the reason I came back the last couple times, even with the life being busy, was just sort of knowing that there were guys at the prison who would do a good job, but couldn't because there wasn't someone to take the puppy. It's a pretty motivating.
Also knowing that if you have a weekend where you can do it, there are subs, and it's not the end of the world if they have to stay in the prison for a weekend. They can skip one weekend coming out. It's not ideal, but it's not a problem. So it's not like you have to commit like for a year and a
Right.
half.
It can be really flexible.
Very flexible, yeah.
I picked up on Saturday instead of Friday, or
Yes,
picked up on Friday and returned Saturday afternoon because,
just life, right.
Their life is very structured. They do well training. It's a very structured environment. So our role becomes sort of what regular life is like. What are they going to do in a kitchen? Or kids around, or traffic going by,
Public transportation at all.
getting in a car.
Mhm.
But it's the motions of everyday life that are suddenly not the same smell, the same routine, the same everything, so that then they can be successful with who they're matched with.
Right, like going to a soccer game or Hannaford, all that stuff,
The
yeah,
checklist is awesome.
Yeah.
I laugh at it all the time. There's this checklist of so many things that the goal would be for the puppies
doctor's
to
offices,
exposed to.
yeah,
I'm sorry, disco.
yeah, disco,
To be honest, now
Yeah.
it's still something like dance club. I've taken all of the pups I'm a teacher, so I've taken them all to school dances, because that counts as disco or nightclub. You can get really creative. Like, we're not in a
Basketball
city,
games,
so
in
many
school,
sports teams.
and
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the airport, the bus station,
Mhm.
the
The ferry.
We've taken dogs over to Islesboro. I took Rocky over to Monhegan. And just whatever you can do with them to expose
and
them to the
camping,
world.
right?
We've taken, yes, I just kind of want to add that I am a veteran, and it caught my eye one day on Facebook, and I just thought, wow, this is really interesting. And I had no idea what was going on in this state. And my husband and I had lost our dog a couple years ago to old age, and we just weren't ready to get another dog yet. And I have to say, I started this because I wanted to give back to veterans, but this dog has given my husband and I so much. It's just on the weekend, but it's therapy for us. We have missed having just the love that a dog brings into your home. And it's also made us a little more like, maybe we will be ready to get a dog again, at some point. So we've just loved it. We don't have any children at home. I wish we had a big full house. Sure.
We got
But-
chickens,
We do have chickens and a cat.
cat.
But anyway, I just want to say it's just been such a gift. I feel like it's kind of given me back, even probably more than, than what I had intended to happen. So
Thank you.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. I used to be an ambulance driver in St. George, and because I had shoulder issues, I stopped doing that. I was looking for something else, and because I used to work for Guiding Eyes for the Blind, I said, this is the program I want to get involved in. So one of our classes we arranged at the fire station. So we had the lights going. We didn't do the sirens, that might have been a little much, but so the dogs get used to fire trucks, to ambulances and all that. And that was great. Just one of the
Yeah.
things that you can teach them what it is.
Yep.
So.
One thing too is
It's for Zoom.
For Zoom. I'm sorry, Zoom. Sorry. Um, one of the things that I think is a common misconception I hear when I'm trying to talk people into doing this is that you have to know how to train dogs. You do not. Honestly, I think it can be helpful if you don't have a lot of dog experience. I grew up with dogs. I had pet dogs before I joined the program. And because I had grown up with dogs, I actually had to unlearn some things. It was a little slower for me to figure it out than it was for some of the people who started at the same time who like hadn't had dogs or hadn't had them in a long time. When I had my current pet dog is actually a released program dog. He was my last full-time VetDogs puppy. And he made it all the way through to the end and then got medically released because one thing that's really cool, I think, about America's VetDogs is that when they place the dog with their disabled handler, they cover the vet bills for the entire working life of the dog until the dog retires. So one of the reasons they won't place a dog that has an ongoing medical condition is because people who need a service dog don't need something else to manage. But also it's because they're covering the vet bills for the entire, 9 or 10 years the dog works. So my current pet dog is a released America's Vet Dog puppy because he has allergies, which, but before, so we hadn't had a dog for a while, but when we did our very first VetDogs puppy, we had a family dog. And that was a really steep learning curve for me because the way that I'd raised my family dog and the way that we managed these dogs was really different. I wish I had done this before I ever got a dog as an adult because I know so much more about the correct way to have a pet. And gosh, my family dogs would have been a lot better behaved if I had been part of the program. But you don't have to be the trainer. The inmates do a beautiful job. You're not really supposed to be the trainer. You're not supposed to be teaching them anything new. There's right on our sheet, we are asked not to try cues with them until they've mastered it at the prison setting. Our whole job as the weekend raisers is socialization. And so once they've mastered at the prison, then we can take it and we can make sure the dog's successful within public, which is a really nice way to get used to handling dogs because the dog already knows it. You don't have to try to shape the behavior. You just have to help the dog be successful in public, that part of it is a lot less stressful than I expected. You don't have to know what to do. You learn through the process, especially when you start with a little one because they don't know what to do yet either.
Right.
He's perfect. He's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, so that again goes back to that communication between the weekend puppy raisers and the inmates. And they really want to make sure that the dogs have it down perfect before they try it in a different environment. So whether it be just even using the command sit, say, stay, stand, until they have it down perfectly, they don't, because, these dogs need to do things perfectly. Yeah, like Ashby said, it's not just a training situation, it's socialization, and it's having other kids come by or, seeing Christmas trees or Hanukkah lights or going to church, any of those things on an airplane, we would want to know about that. If that was going to happen, but, just like on the boat.
We had one class in Brunswick, an Amtrak arrived and we
Oh,
were,
yeah.
sorry, and we were allowed to go, through the train, walk through the train, so they get used to doing that and got off again. Made sure they didn't leave with one of us on board, but.
Yeah. So, yeah, anything else you want to know about the program or the dogs or they estimate these dogs by the time they get out to a veteran there's $50,000 has been invested in them. So, and like Ashby said, if the dogs are released, the first person that we offer the dog to is the weekend puppy raiser. So like Sasha recently raised a puppy, his name is Rocky, and his hips came back with just a hint of hip dysplasia. So he was adopted, and Sasha wasn't in a position to be able to take him right now. So He's being adopted out of from the foundation in New York. They don't adopt, like you can't, it's not open to the public to adopt these dogs. It's a kind of a closed network. It can be, I would imagine that a lot of the staff at America Vet Dogs have released dogs, their family members, donors, the volunteers, yeah. So,
And I remember Paula explaining to me too that releasing the dog fully is like a last resort kind of thing.
yes,
The release rate is still fairly high just because it is really intense to be a service dog. These dogs need to be wonderful. Like it's like a real combination of like genetics, personality, socialization, and training. You're kind of like hitting the lottery if a dog gets placed because these working dogs are amazing.
and we do, if dogs are not suited to be a service dog, they might be a good scent dog. We've released some to alcohol, tobacco, and firearms to be scent dogs, or to TSA, just for different jobs, because their breeding is incredible. Most of them are mixes of mostly lab with a little bit of golden retriever in them. And they really have a whole breeding program down in New York where they're tracking, what dogs are going to be the best breeding stock. We seem to have a lot more boys than girls, because the girls, they frequently will hold back in New York to give them some time to see if they're going to be suitable for breeding. So like in this golden retriever litter, which is the first litter we've had of just Goldens, and they're pure Goldens. I think there was 8 dogs, 2 females, and the 6 males came out. We got 1, there's 2 in Massachusetts. I think there's 1 in Pennsylvania, it doesn't matter, but the 2 females are still in New York, and being considered for breeding. So, they are looking for a different temperament. They're looking for the motivation that the dogs have. They want them to be calm, but they want them to be working, kind of know when things are on and off. And they're off. Yeah. Yep. They stay in the cells with the inmates at night. The inmates all have a crate. They have we supply all the food, the medication, the flea and tick, heartworm, all that. We have a closet area in the pod that is for our stuff. And the guys are responsible for, in the morning, taking them out to go potty. They are supposed to they do that on command, and they cannot randomly pee on a walk or anything. That's not okay. They will get released for that if it's not something that they can manage. But that seems to be a fairly easy task to train them to. But again, it's just because of the consistency with these guys and the time that they have. Their schedule really allows them to excel as dog trainers. And then they take them in, generally feed them, and then depending on, sometimes they're locked in the morning for a little bit, so then they go back in, and then they are usually they get the dogs outside, they're supposed to walk them at least twice a day for at least half an hour, 20 minutes, it depends on the weather. And when I say walk them, it's a training walk. They are doing loose leash walking. There's no tugging. If there's no sniffing, there's no picking at grass, scavenging for anything. And if they do, then they're corrected. And all of the training is positive reinforcement. We do something called collar corrections, where you just kind of nudge them a little bit, but there's no harsh, there's no punishment in this training. And in all reputable dog training, it's all positive. And the dogs, they want to work. Their tails are wagging like crazy when they're doing their thing. So, yeah, so they kind of just hang out with the guys, and if they go to, they have a building that has their education, their classrooms, their gym, art stuff, music rooms and all that kind of stuff. I gotta say, plug for Maine State Prison, it is a very nice facility. They really focus on rehabilitation and supporting this population of basically good people that have made big mistakes and, you know, harmed people and their, but so the dogs will go maybe to the gym with them or whatever. They go sit there and watch them play basketball or volleyball, whatever. And they're very well received for the most part at the prison. They do have two other dog programs at the prison here. One is shelter dogs. They
The canine correction program at Memorial.
Yep, so they just take shelter dogs and get them so they're good for adoption. And then there's another program called Mission Dogs. Mission Working Dogs, yeah. And those are also, it's a veterans program. So they're all in different pods, and the prison is comprised, I don't know how much you guys know about this, but of, I don't know, maybe 8 different living pods. And I'm guessing at that. In the one building that we work out of, I think there's 8 different living areas, and they don't cross over. When the dogs are out working, we want them to be wearing these vests. When they're like going for a walk in the woods or on the beach or whatever, we don't want them wearing this, just because they kind of learn, you know, if they're wearing that vest, they're on the job. So
That's an important point too, is that they're not always on the job.
no.
I think sometimes I'll be out with one of them and someone and they're, you know, behaving very nicely, you know, in a nice heel, really focused, and someone always says, "Oh, poor thing," and I want to be like, "Ma'am."
Yeah.
There are no dogs happier than these dogs, right? They're with
Agreed.
their person 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're doing a job, they love it. But also, an important piece is like every single day, whether they're with us or they're at the prison, they get playtime to be a dog. And that looks different depending on the dog and your life situation. For example, I don't have a fenced in yard. I have wooded acres and it just doesn't make sense. But I do have 2 minutes from my house, a big fenced in ball field that allows dogs. And so I take Christopher or whatever puppy I have at the time and my own dog down to the field every single day that I have them on the weekends. And first my dog just chills over there. And then we do some polite walking because I don't want him to associate every time we go to a ball field, he gets to run free. So first we walk politely for 5 or 10 minutes. And then I will throw the Frisbee for them for a half hour and they can run and chase and tire each other out. At the prison, they play fetch a lot, right? So they get off leash time, they get exercise. We'll take them camping sometimes. We'll go to the beach and they can swim. They are not off leash with us ever unless they're fenced. That's really, really important. But they make 50-foot leashes and they're wonderful.
Yeah.
I have a 50-foot long line and I will use it at the beach all the time. And that way the dogs can swim and play. But I think that's really important too, is they work hard, but they also really get time to play and be dogs. And they need it.
And one thing we do in particular at the prison is when they're playing, to call it training, we call them out so they can be running around chasing each other, and then the handler will call their dog and the dog needs to come, and they do. And so it's very important that they do that they're playing and that they're focused on something fun and something way better but it's amazing. They come back, and when they have very nice manners for the most part. When the dogs are called to come, they're not expected, but they do. They come right up in front and sit down in front of you, in front of their handler. So some of the more advanced things that they learn is just different positioning. Like there's one command that it's called center, and the purpose of it is to create space between the veteran and somebody that might be approaching them, that might be like the crazy mall lady or just somebody that, they don't want in their space. And it's a PTSD command, but it's also useful for all the handlers or the veterans. The dog just stands right in front of you, like, perpendicular to you. And it just and that their positioning is really important. And and let's see, the other ones that are for PTSD, or we don't do this at the prison, but when they go in for formal training, they learn to wake somebody from a nightmare. And so the trainer there will lay in a bed and then just start moving around a little bit. And the dog is in a bed in their same little area, and will get up and nudge the individual 3 times usually, and it wakes the dog up, the human up. They learn to push chairs in, tug doors open the refrigerator. They learn to pick things up. That's a big one we work on in the prison, of having them pick up pens, cup, phone, whatever. Yeah.
Also, when they're on the leash, they will pick up the end of the leash and bring it to the handler.
Yeah.
Not just here,
Yeah.
no, the end of
The end of the leash.
So they know.
So if somebody drops the leash, you just give them the command and they will give it back to you. Yeah, they're pretty amazing. So if anybody's, they're very chill.
I was gonna say, on YouTube, there are a ton of videos made by the Guide Dog Foundation or America's VetDogs, where they actually show the dogs
Yes.
like tasks and show some of the training.
Yeah.
And since we don't do the active training, we kind of are doing like the early shaping of things. It's always really fun to see sort of where we're headed. For example, there's a command we use all the time called touch, which is super useful for anything. It's really helpful to get a dog's attention if they're focusing. You just put your hand out and they'll nudge you with their nose.
They love it.
It's the most helpful.
It is a building block.
It's great. But what's
command.
really
Right.
cool is that from touch, they can then shape it. So the inmates and Claire, they're working on sort of all of these core skills. And then when the dog gets matched with their veteran, the professional trainers in New York will then shape those core skills based on what that veteran needs. So for example, my current dog, he's a big guy and he is a really slow mover. So he was kind of working towards probably being some sort of mobility service dog, mobility and PTSD. That was kind of his screening. And so they were working with him specifically on things like bracing, like to stand in a specific way at the top of the stairs. So if someone needed to lean, they could. He was working really hard on that touch command, but they were turning it into push. So instead of touching the hand, they'd switch to using a CD. So he learned to touch a marker. And I used that when I adopted him. I started taping the CDs to my cabinet doors and drawers and leaving them open.
Mhm.
So now if I'm anywhere in the house and someone leaves a cabinet open, I can point and he'll go close them for me. But it all started with that same touch command.
Get him to pick up shoes and,
My
put them
dog
away. Yeah.
really did like to work. He, because he went through all of this amazing training with his inmate, even though he was released, he clearly loved working. So I ended up getting him certified to be a therapy dog through through Alliance of Therapy Dogs, and he comes to work with me every day. He works at the middle school where I work.
He's a celebrity.
He is. He sometimes comes to puppy class just to like be a little mentor. But a lot of he loves it. Like when I say they love to work, like he is not a service dog, but he still cleans the house. Like if the kids or the cats or we leave things on the floor, he will just, when we enter the house, he will walk around and pick the items up one at a time and bring them to you. And then you have to take it and put it away. And he'll spend 10 minutes when we get home doing that.
The Roomba.
Yeah. Yes. It's really useful.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing to do? To get them to do that? Is to leave things lying around?
Not these guys.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is like mine now, so I can do whatever the
yes.
heck I want. So
Because he's a pet now. And that's really not something that the weekend puppy raisers would do. I don't think, did you, because you've taken a dog through pretty far, did you ever do?
We'll do bring,
Bring.
but later. So
Yeah.
bring and fetch are really different, and they're super strict. Like, you don't start doing the bring command until that dog has mastered it, because they have to pick it up really, really carefully. And they have to use that really soft mouth, right? If you're asking them to pick up something
Thank you.
that's breakable or something like that. So if they haven't mastered it perfectly, and we don't know how to do that, we're not dog trainers. There's a really specific way of shaping. So the inmates with the professional trainer will like shape the skill beautifully. Only one of the dogs that I have worked with had gotten to the point where we were allowed to practice bring at home. Usually it's something they work on in there. We play fetch, like with a ball or a frisbee, but collecting items is something they can only do when they have it like down. And like, we don't use, there's no stuffies. They don't get soft toys. There's a list of approved dog toys we're allowed to have for them. It's basically just tennis balls with supervision.
Yep.
And
Nylabones.
nylabones and Kongs, because what we don't want is dogs are really good at generalizing bad behavior and not generalizing good behavior. And so what we don't want is them to see stuffed animals on the floor and assume it's theirs, which they would if they had stuffed animals, right? We don't want them to see a slipper and think, well, that looks like that other toy I have. So basically, unless it's a specific dog toy of the type we always give them, they're not supposed to touch it. And I will say, like, this guy is particularly wiggly. Thank you for proving that. I know it's tough. I know. And he's just 8 months old, and he still has learned already that if he finds things on the floor in the house, he won't touch them. Like, and I can leave my slippers out now. The kids can leave their toys around. And if it's something he hasn't been given, he's really good about it. And he's still very early in the process. They learn pretty quickly.
Yeah. They do have toys there that we use to bring back, or like as distractions or whatever. That's an important part of their training, is to ignore things. So like a little fire truck toy or something with the sirens going, and we'll have them just be loose leash walking or sit and do a sit stay and just ignore it. And so,
Or walk by treats on the floor.
Oh, yeah.
You have to leave them.
yep. So no counter surfing, none of that. Yeah. Yeah, they're not allowed on furniture. And a lot of people do have a pet dog that is allowed on furniture, and these dogs seem to understand that that's not me. So, yeah.
How long do you have to wait to get a puppy? What's the waiting period? Do you have puppies that?
We do not, we are hoping to get some puppies the beginning of the year. So, yeah, which is right around the corner. So if you are interested, we do training. The next one we're going to do is probably not convenient for you guys, but we're going to do training next Saturday, not this Saturday, next Saturday, the 9th, I think, at Ella Bean in Freeport. We seem to do that every year before Christmas. Yeah, and it's just, there's a lot going on there. But I brought some materials. It does have just the links to our website. These vests also have a QR code on the back, so that when they're out and people are interested, they can scan that and it takes you right to the website if you're interested. But we do invite people to come to the training, the weekend puppy raiser classes. And we do also ask before anybody commits to come to a class or two and just observe and make sure that's what you want to do. We usually do them in Rockland or Thomaston, and it's twice a month, Saturday mornings, usually from 9 to 10. Sometimes it runs till 10:30. But and again, it's one of those things that if you can't make it, it's fine. You know, it's not like a complete commitment of I have to, every weekend now is going to be totally dedicated to a dog. We want the dogs just to be experiencing life outside, and it, you know, on the streets with trucks driving by, and you know, life. So, yeah.
And it's a night It's a pretty flexible group too.
It's
Like
very
there have been
flexible,
times
very
like,
supportive.
I couldn't, we picked up a day early, right? We normally would pick up tomorrow afternoon. And so I said, well, I can pick Christopher up and bring him to the event, but I can't keep him for Saturday because I work and he's not allowed to come to school with me, nor is he ready yet. And so Sasha said, oh, okay. Well, you pick him up, you bring him to the thing. I'll take him home for the night and keep him during the day. And then I'll pick him up from her. And we've done this,
Yeah.
you know, there was a weekend I couldn't take him, so she did, or I couldn't take him till Saturday, so someone else did. We sub for each
Yep.
other. And sometimes we'll do things like in the past, I have the chaos household. And so if someone
Yes.
has a calmer household, sometimes we'll
We-
swap
we
dogs.
rotate.
Because it's nice to see, well, how would the dog I've raised do in a setting where there's a lot less going on? Like I found that my last dog, I found actually he had a harder time when there was less chaos because he was so used to that. And that's something he'd have to get used to as well. Whereas other dogs, if they've never been around cats, for example, and their weekend raiser doesn't have a cat, one of us might say, well, I'll take him for the day and we can do that. So we communicate with each other a lot too, to trade off if we need to and try to figure out, problem solve too. Like I recently said, like, I feel like Harry may be, Christopher may be struggling to kind of settle in different places. So when Sasha took him overnight, she texted me and gave me like specific details about how he did.
To Waterman Beach Brewery.
Yeah.
To settle into the bar.
And so then we conferred, like, how did that look? What could we do differently? So you have a group of people to problem solve with too. And none of us are experts, but it's kind of fun,
Share
honestly.
experiences, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yep. That's right. We're very. Anything? Yep.
As you can see, they're dignified and very serious about their work all the time.
They're like, yes.
So what is the total vetting process?
To be a weekend puppy raiser, there's an application. It's on our website, and you fill it out. It's electronic. Send it into. There's an the email to send it to, and then they reach out to. They make sure we want people to be within 30 miles of the prison, or a 30-minute drive. Ish, heavy on the ish. It's Maine, yes. Sharon, yeah. And we have somebody that's in Harpswell or Topsom. So we're flexible on that, but we just want to make sure it's, doable. We do, so you fill that out, and then your contact, it ultimately, anybody in this, in Maine, I'm going to contact, and we do a home visit, and make sure that your home is going to be a safe environment for a dog. If you have a dog, we want to bring one of our dogs to meet your dog or cat or whoever. So if you do have pets in the house, we generally will bring one of the dogs in to make sure that we had one, seemed like a great weekend puppy raiser, but they had a very aggressive dog that was not happy having, so and it just wasn't a suitable home. Too many toys, too many temptations for kids. So house doesn't have to be, child-proof, dog-proof, anything like that, but it just has to be a safe environment for the dog. We want the people to follow, make sure they have an area where they can go do their business. We call it getting busy, not grass. So like we've had, I think you put out some pavers or, yeah.
Gravel driveway, which is great.
Yeah. So there's, we kind of want to set those parameters, but just being willing to do it. Don't have to have.
Keep an eye on them, like almost all the
Yeah.
time. I mean,
If-
I never say, okay, I'm just gonna do
Right.
something, he's fine. So I do commit the time, but there are times where, you have to do something else. there's a crate.
Yeah.
They do need to learn, the one thing they cannot learn in the prison is the alone time in the crate. So it's very good when they're with the weekend raisers to go in the crates and be
Right.
alone,
And it is, yeah,
then you can do something and they're
or
safe.
if you don't want to take them somewhere, if you're, going to Hannaford because you need to go to Hannaford and you're in a rush and you don't want to, then crate them, they're fine. Never leave them in a car by themselves. We teach them to ride in the front, on the floor of the passenger seat. Yeah. Initially, then they can move into the back later, but we really want them right there. And if they're outside, they're either in a fenced-in area or they're on a leash. And we also encourage in home, sometimes you have to tether them to something. Like if they're being a nuisance in the kitchen, you leave them on the leash and you put it around a chair or something. So they do need supervision, but you can always crate them and just say, we're having dinner or whatever. Or if you just, are doing something that you don't want to include them in there.
People have taken their dog to work with them?
Yes, but they're with you on the weekends.
Right.
So if your schedule is that you're working on the weekends, that's fine. We would want to know about that. I know the people that are raising dogs, our sister organization is guide dogs. And there's primarily vision, for vision impaired. They do a lot of just full-time puppy raisers where somebody gets a dog from 8 weeks and turns it in there. So they're full-time. And most of those people do take dogs to work with them. So.
Have you had anybody take one of them on a plane yet?
Not one of
Puppy
ours.
raisers have in other states.
Yeah.
For sure. I follow them all on Instagram.
Yeah.
So
And we have one puppy that is in for formal training now who's going to be a facility dog, the one I mentioned about probably working in a children's hospital. She actually just did some training with some airline staff because she's so good, about just the whole, puppies flying on planes. So we do use some of our dogs for demo type things, while they're waiting to get placed. So
we have done field trips at the airport in Portland, and we've gone through security before a few years ago with one of the cohorts we had. We got permission in advance to
Yep.
go down at a really sort of dead time, and we went all the way through security and did the off leash and then the walk through the metal detector and waited at the gate, and we did the the walk down towards a plane. And so we've done airports.
like the jetway kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah. And Sasha actually has been making some inquiries about the airport in, is it Owl's Head? Weren't you doing that?
Oh, yeah, and
Yeah.
Knox County
Yeah.
Airport here. Yeah, I've taken Rocky several times there and, getting used to the noise of airplanes taking off.
Yeah.
When the luggage comes in, I mean, maybe 1 or 2 suitcases come in, it's not that busy, but still, it's, it makes noise, and it's good that they learn all those things, that they get used to it.
I work for Cape Air, that's why I was.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Harry's been up there.
Oh, no, I work in town, I'm not at
Oh,
the
okay.
airport.
I've taken Harry up there.
So, yeah, it is something that, would be a great experience for the dog. So,
Yeah, or where there's boats, I mean.
Yep.
I took Rocky on our boat, but I also took him on the ferry, and try to do as much.
I think somebody was on a water taxi not too long ago. Maybe that was Laura. I think. So,
I will say the one thing, and this isn't to dissuade you because I think it's really fun and you should do it, but I think it's important to kind of like be aware, especially at the beginning. Like you're going to be focused on the puppy on the weekend. Again, if you have to take a weekend off or a night off or something, you can, but until these dogs really are like around this age, like we're just starting to be like looser in the house now. Like with your pet dog, right? Like you can afford to have some more missteps and have them learn some bad habits because you have the time to untrain some of those bad habits. But these inmates are working really hard, and these dogs are on a fairly strict timeline. So our main, I think of my main job is not to mess up what's happening at the prison on the weekends. So if I'm not sure a puppy can handle something, I don't put them in that position without a ton of scaffolding. So for example, every puppy that I've had in the house, I have kept fully on leash or in a crate with me for at least the first 4 to 6 weekends. Like, that's not an exaggeration. I'll use a longer leash, but especially when we're house training, it's so much easier for them to just keep being successful than for them to have accidents and have to recover from it. They'll have some, they're little. So, you know, I always start with the puppy on a leash, moving from room to room with me. Like if I'm doing the dishes, I might actually like stand on the end of the leash, or if I'm sitting on the couch and they're on the floor, or if I'm sitting with them, I'll hold the leash. I also have cats, so it's a nice way of making sure they don't accidentally do something really fun like chase a cat, because if they have the experience, they're gonna want it again. You know, and then we progress to, I start using baby gates. So first I'll gate them into the same room I'm in. And then I will expand it so they're gated into the, you know, the 2 rooms I can see. We've moved to the point now with Christopher just in the past couple of weeks where I just gate the bottom of the stairs. So now he's downstairs with me, but he is 8 months old now. And, you know, like Claire said, they don't have to go everywhere with you, but they also can't at first. You know, he's on field trip level 3 now. So last time I had him out, we went to a musical theater production at the high school. We can do that. We've gone to restaurants. But when they're on level 1 or even level 2, that dog isn't ready to be successful there, so you don't do it, right? There's a sheet. You don't have to make the guesses. You get guidance. And so you are kind of making your plans for at least the first like month or 2 kind of around what you can and cannot do with the dog, or you're making sure to make your timing so they're not at home in the crate for more than 2 hours. It gets much easier. Right around this time, depending on the dog. Some are earlier. I've had some where by 6 months, they could come everywhere with me, and others, it was closer to 10 or 11. Pretty soon, though, they put their vest on, and you can just, they can go to Hannaford with you and do your grocery shopping. They can go out to dinner. We're going to the movies tomorrow to see the new Disney movie. But it's important to know, like in the beginning, when you're like, oh my goodness, this is a lot of work. It doesn't stay that way, but it is work at the
Just like
beginning.
having babies, having kids, you know, it's like, so, well, I think these guys are all kind of telling us they need to, yeah. Any questions or anything? So I meant to bring some cards with my number on it, but they're in my car. But the website is there, and feel free to check it out. And if you're interested in, or if you want to just come for a training thing, observe that. We also have had some people that have been interested, just take a puppy for a weekend before they said, yeah, okay, I can, you know, just, and we encourage that too, just so you kind of know what it's like, but, so. Well, we appreciate you guys coming out. And, yeah, so.
If you want to come get a belly rub, you can.
Yeah.
That's allowed.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you all so
All
much
right,
for
thank
your
you.
time.